Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to take you on a beautiful journey. But before we begin, let me ask you, what if I told you that the greatest power in the world is found not in the noise of society, but in the silence of your own mind? Would you dare to embrace that silence and unlock the limitless potential within you? What if I told you that everything you seek, everything you desire already exists within you, that there is no force outside of yourself that determines the course of your life, only the assumptions you hold in the silence of your own mind? You have been led to believe that power lies in external circumstances, in the validation of others, in the movement of the world around you. But this is the grand illusion. The only true power is within, and solitude is the key that unlocks it. When you are alone, stripped of the distractions of the outer world, you are left with nothing but your awareness, your consciousness. And herein lies the great secret. Consciousness is the only reality. The world you experience is not happening to you, it is happening through you. It is not independent of your perception, but is shaped by it. The thoughts you entertain, the beliefs you hold, the assumptions you dwell upon, these are the unseen forces molding the external world into form. And yet, most seek power outside of themselves, never realizing that the one who controls his inner world controls all. To recognize yourself as the operant power, you must first understand that reality does not exist separate from you. You do not observe the world, you create it. The conditions of your life are not dictated by chance, by fate, or by external influences. They are the perfect reflection of your inner state. Change that inner state, and the outer world must conform. This is not philosophy, it is law. A law as certain as gravity, as unyielding as time. Solitude is powerful because it removes the interference of the world. It allows you to see clearly that your thoughts, your imaginal acts, are the true architects of your experience. It is in the stillness that you come face to face with your own creative power. When you are alone, you can no longer blame circumstances, no longer point to the opinions of others, no longer seek outside yourself for answers. You are forced to look within, and it is in this looking that the truth is revealed. The only thing that ever needed to change was you. This is why solitude is feared by so many. They have spent their lives identifying with the external, believing that their worth is tied to the recognition of others, that their reality is shaped by forces beyond their control. To sit alone with oneself is to confront the ultimate truth, that they have always been responsible for their own condition. There is no one else to credit, no one else to blame. The state of being they hold within is the cause, and the world merely the effect. When you begin to understand this, solitude is no longer a burden but a gift. It is not loneliness, it is liberation. It is the space in which you can assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled without contradiction, where you can cultivate the inner convictions that will later materialize as the events of your life. The one who embraces solitude masters reality, for he understands that reality is an echo of his own consciousness. All great transformations begin in the silence. The mind, undistracted by external noise, becomes the perfect instrument for creation. If you would change your life, you must first change the assumptions you hold in solitude. Withdraw from the world, not in body but in mind, and assume the state of your desire fulfilled. See it clearly, feel it as real, persist in that assumption until it becomes the only truth you know. Do not wait for evidence in the outer world. The evidence will come, for it must. The world does not operate on effort alone. It operates on belief. And belief is not something to be sought in the world, but something to be cultivated within. Those who understand this cease to struggle against circumstances. They do not fight against appearances, nor do they seek validation from the external. They turn inward, knowing that the moment they shift their inner state, the outer world will rearrange itself in perfect accordance. Power is not in action alone, but in assumption. The world is full of those who act tirelessly, who chase, who strive, and yet never seem to grasp the thing they seek. It is not because they lack effort, but because they have not first assumed the state of the one who already possesses their desire. They are trying to change the effect without first addressing the cause. But the one who understands that he is the operant power does not chase, he assumes. He knows that his imaginal acts, sustained and believed in, will externalize in perfect form. It is in solitude that this mastery is cultivated. In the stillness of your own mind, you must dare to claim what is yours. You must assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled with such conviction that the world has no choice but to conform. This is not wishful thinking. It is the fundamental nature of reality. You are not subject to the whims of fate. You are the author of fate. You are not at the mercy of circumstances. You are the creator of circumstances. And the proof of this lies not in the world, but in your own experience. If you would test this, begin now. Withdraw into yourself. Close your eyes to the world and assume the state of your desire already fulfilled. Feel it real. Do not look to the external for confirmation. Persist, and the confirmation will come. This is the key that those who truly understand have always known. The world is but a mirror, reflecting faithfully the assumptions you hold within. Change those assumptions, and the reflection must change. You need no one's permission. You need no validation. You need only to recognize that you are the operant power. The power has always been yours, waiting only to be acknowledged. In solitude, in stillness, in the silence of your own mind, claim it, assume it, and the world will bend to your command. You have been conditioned to believe that the world outside of you holds the answers, that in the noise and movement of life, you will find direction. But this is the great illusion, the grand deception that keeps you bound to circumstance. The world is not the source of creation, it is the reflection of it. If you allow yourself to be governed by external distractions, you surrender the power that is rightfully yours. To truly manifest, to bring forth into form that which you desire, you must first withdraw from the world of appearances. You must step away from the distractions that pull you outward and turn within. For within is where creation takes place. It is not in the busyness of the outer world that transformation happens, but in the stillness of the unseen. The one who is always looking outside himself for validation, for confirmation, will find himself forever at the mercy of what already exists. But the one who dares to be alone, who dares to turn away from the senses and dwell in the reality of his imagination, is the one who holds the secret of creation. The external world is full of voices, voices that tell you who you are, what you can do, and what is possible for you. But these voices do not speak the truth. They speak only of past assumptions made manifest. If you allow them to dictate your reality, you will remain trapped in a cycle of repetition, recreating yesterday over and over again. But when you are alone, truly alone, those voices fall away. In solitude, you are no longer influenced by the doubts and fears of others, no longer swayed by appearances. You come face to face with the only truth that matters. Your imagination is the only reality. To manifest, you must learn to see beyond what the senses report. If you are constantly reacting to the world, you are not creating, you are merely observing. And as long as you observe, you will continue to see the same conditions repeated. But the moment you withdraw, the moment you step into the silence and assume the state of your desire fulfilled, you have set the creative process in motion. The world may not yet show evidence of this assumption, but that does not matter. The world is a delayed reflection, always showing in time what has already been accepted in mind. Solitude allows you to impress new ideas upon the subconscious without interference. When you are surrounded by people, by external influences, your mind is bombarded with conflicting messages. You may desire wealth, but the voices of others may remind you of lack. You may long for health, but the world may tell you of illness. You may dream of success, but those around you may reinforce failure. If you listen to these voices, if you allow them to dictate your state of being, you will find yourself trapped in a world that does not reflect your true desires. But in solitude, these distractions vanish. Alone with your thoughts, You are free to assume what you wish without contradiction. You are free to dwell in the state of your wish fulfilled without interference. In this state, the new assumption takes root. It begins to harden into fact. And when you persist, when you refuse to be swayed by appearances, the world will reshape itself to mirror your inner conviction. The mistake so many make is seeking confirmation in the outer world before they have fully assumed their desire within. They look for signs, for proof, before they have established the new state as real. But the law does not work this way. The world does not change first, you do. And when you have changed, when you have fully embodied the feeling of your desire fulfilled, then and only then will the world shift. But to reach this state, you must first detach from the distractions that keep you bound to the old reality. Solitude is the great purifier, the great clarifier of thought. When you are alone, you have no choice but to direct your focus inward. And it is in this inward direction that manifestation takes place. It is here, in the silence of your own mind, that you may boldly assume that which the world has told you is impossible. And in that assumption, you set in motion unseen forces that will move heaven and earth to bring your desire into being. There is no need to announce your intentions to the world, no need to seek validation from others. The greatest manifestations occur in secrecy, in the quiet of the unseen. Those who speak too soon, who share their desires before they have fully assumed them, often find themselves discouraged by the doubts of others. But the wise one knows that the work of creation is done in silence. He knows that his assumption, once made, is law. He does not seek proof. He knows proof will come. To be alone is to be in the presence of the most powerful force in existence, your own creative imagination. It is to strip away the noise, the distractions, the contradictions, and to dwell solely in the state of your wish fulfilled. If you would change your life, if you would manifest that which you desire, you must first master the art of solitude. You must learn to turn inward, to silence the world and listen only to the voice within. For it is this voice, the voice of your assumption, that will shape the world in your image. The outer world is nothing but a mirror, faithfully reflecting that which you hold within. If you wish to change the reflection, you must first change the cause. And the cause is always your state of being. When you are alone, free from the distractions of the world, you are in the perfect position to assume a new state. In this assumption, you plant the seed of a new reality. And if you persist in that assumption, the seed must bear fruit. It is in solitude that true power is found. Not in action, not in struggle, but in the quiet, confident assumption that what you desire is already yours. And when you have assumed it fully, without doubt, without contradiction, the world will bow to your conviction. The world has no choice but to reflect that which you have claimed in the silence. There is no power outside of consciousness. The world you see, the life you live, the conditions you experience, they are not separate from you, not imposed upon you by an external force. They are the direct reflection of your own assumptions, the manifestation of the states you have entertained in the silence of your own mind. You may believe that events happen by chance, that circumstances arise independently of your thoughts, but this is the grand deception that binds so many to a life of limitation. Reality is not something you passively observe. It is something you actively create. And the tool of creation is assumption. In the stillness of solitude, you are free from the distractions of the outer world, free from the opinions and doubts of others. It is here, in this sacred space of the mind, that the seeds of all experience are planted. Every assumption you hold in solitude is a command issued to the unseen forces that govern this world. What you accept as true in the quiet of your own being will materialize in time. The outer world cannot help but obey the inner world, for it is nothing more than its reflection. You do not need to manipulate circumstances, persuade others, or struggle against conditions. You need only assume, and what you assume in consciousness will become fact. To test this, consider your past. Look carefully at the conditions of your life and ask yourself, what was I assuming before this experience took form? If you are honest, you will see that every event, every success, every failure was preceded by an inner conviction, an assumption held long before it became visible. There is no mystery to manifestation. It is simply the inevitable result of sustained thought and feeling. Your state of consciousness is the cause, the world is the effect. This is why solitude is powerful. It allows you to withdraw from the distractions of appearances and consciously choose the states you wish to embody. Most live as slaves to circumstance, reacting to what their senses report, never realizing that their reactions only reinforce the very conditions they seek to escape. If they see lack, they assume lack. If they see failure, they assume failure. And by assuming these states, they unknowingly command the world to continue reflecting them. But the one who understands the law of consciousness does not react, he creates. He does not wait for the world to change before he believes in a new reality. He assumes the new reality in advance and trusts that the world must follow. To assume is to claim, to take possession in the unseen before it is visible. It is to occupy the state of the wish fulfilled so completely that no external evidence is needed. If you would change your life, you must first change your assumption. You cannot desire one thing while assuming another. You cannot long for success while believing in failure. You cannot hope for love while assuming rejection. The world responds not to your words, not to your efforts, but to your dominant state of being. And your state of being is determined by what you accept as true in the stillness of your own mind. If you would prove this to yourself, begin now. Withdraw into solitude and assume a new state. Close your eyes to the world, turn inward and imagine yourself already in possession of that which you seek. Do not wish for it. Do not long for it. Assume it. Feel it as real as though it were already so. If you persist in this assumption, without contradiction, the world will rearrange itself to make it true. This is the law, the unbreakable principle that governs all creation. Doubt is the great destroyer of manifestation. It is the force that unravels assumptions before they have the chance to solidify into fact. This is why solitude is essential. In the world, you are surrounded by doubt, by voices that contradict your desires, by appearances that tempt you to believe in limitation. But when you are alone, when you have withdrawn from the senses and turned inward, you are in full control of your state of being. Here you may assume without interference. You may dwell in the feeling of the wish fulfilled without resistance. And what you persist in feeling must become your experience. The world will call this imagination. But imagination is not a mere fantasy. It is the blueprint of reality. Everything that now exists was once imagined. Every building, every invention, every work of art was first seen in the mind before it became visible. Your life is no different. If you would change your circumstances, you must first change the images you entertain in solitude. You must cease to be impressed by the facts of the present and instead be moved by the vision of what could be. You must dare to assume, to believe in the unseen, knowing that assumption, when persisted in, will always harden into fact. The great error is waiting for proof before assuming. Those who live by sight alone will never create anything new, for they are bound to the evidence of the past. But the one who understands that consciousness is the only reality does not wait. He assumes. He closes his eyes to what is and sees only what he chooses to be. He remains faithful to his assumption, unshaken by appearances, knowing that the world must yield to his conviction. This is the difference between the one who masters life and the one who is mastered by it. When you recognize that you are the operant power, that your assumptions in solitude shape the world, you no longer fear circumstances. You no longer seek validation from the external, for you know that the external is always secondary, always the effect, never the cause. You turn inward, assume the state you wish to experience, and rest in the certainty that it must come to pass. You understand that the world is not separate from you, but is you, externalized. And in this understanding, you find freedom. The mind is the garden in which all things grow, and the seeds planted within it determine the harvest you shall reap. The world you see around you, the conditions you experience, the opportunities that arise or seem to elude you, these are not dictated by chance, nor are they imposed upon you by an external power. They are the direct manifestations of the impressions made upon your subconscious mind. The subconscious does not argue, does not reason, does not reject. It accepts as truth whatever is consistently impressed upon it. And it is from these impressions that your reality is shaped. But here lies the great challenge. Most live in a state of contradiction. They seek abundance, but continually affirm lack. They desire love, but assume rejection. They long for success, but entertain failure. The outer world, with all its distractions, bombards the mind with conflicting messages. And in this state of contradiction, manifestation becomes uncertain, delayed, or entirely reversed. If the subconscious is to be reprogrammed, if the deep-seated beliefs that govern life are to be changed, one must find a space free from contradiction, a space where new impressions may take root without interference. That space is found in solitude. Solitude is not loneliness, nor is it isolation in the negative sense. It is the deliberate withdrawal from the distractions of the world to assume full control over the contents of the mind. In the absence of external voices, in the quiet where only your own thoughts exist, you are given the greatest gift: the ability to consciously choose what will be impressed upon your subconscious. Without the influence of opinions, without the reinforcement of old limitations, you are free to implant new assumptions, new beliefs, new realities. And once these assumptions are impressed, they will externalize as the circumstances of your life. The subconscious mind is the soil, and your assumptions are the seeds. If you plant a seed and then continually dig it up to check if it has begun to grow, you disrupt the process and prevent its fruition. The same is true with the impressions made upon the subconscious. If you affirm a new belief but then allow the external world to contradict it, if you assume a new state but then let doubt uproot it, you will never see it come to pass. But in solitude, there is no contradiction. There is no one to tell you it is impossible, no one to remind you of past failures, no external evidence to dispute your new assumption. Here, in the stillness of your own mind, you may dwell fully and completely in the state of your wish fulfilled. The process is simple, yet profound. In solitude, close your eyes to the world, turn your attention inward, and assume that what you desire is already yours. Do not wish for it. Do not long for it. Assume it. Feel it as though it were a present fact. Engage your senses in this assumption. If it were true, how would you feel? What would you see? What would you hear? Lose yourself in the reality of your assumption until it becomes more real to you than the world outside. In this state, you impress the subconscious mind, and what is impressed must be expressed. This is the power of solitude. It removes all contradiction, allowing you to reprogram your subconscious mind with certainty. The world will tell you to be realistic, to accept things as they are, to be practical in your expectations. But the world is merely a reflection of past assumptions. It is not a fixed reality. It is fluid, ever-changing, molded by the contents of your consciousness. If you wish to change your world, you must first change the assumptions that shape it. And this work is best done alone, where the only voice that speaks is your own. There is no need for struggle, no need for force. The subconscious does not respond to effort. It responds to conviction. It responds to what is persistently felt and assumed as true. Many try to change their lives through action alone, never realizing that action without a changed assumption is futile. They work tirelessly, yet their circumstances remain the same. But the one who understands the power of the subconscious knows that the outer world is secondary. He knows that to change his life, he need only change his inner state. And he does this best when alone, undisturbed by the contradictions of the external world. To test this, set aside time each day to enter solitude, to withdraw from the world and turn inward. Choose the state you wish to assume, and in the quiet of your mind, live from it. Do not merely think of it, become it. If you wish to be prosperous, assume the feeling of wealth. If you wish to be loved, assume the feeling of being cherished. If you wish to be successful, assume the feeling of accomplishment. In solitude, with no external distractions to contradict you, these assumptions will take root deeply, and as you persist, they will solidify into fact. Doubt has no power unless you give it power. It is only when you allow external evidence to contradict your assumption that you fall back into the old state. This is why solitude is so valuable. It acts as a shield, protecting the mind from the influence of the outer world until the new assumption is firmly established. Once it is established, the world will conform to it effortlessly. There will be no need to force change, no need to struggle. Reality will simply shift to reflect what has been impressed upon the subconscious. The greatest transformations do not happen through effort, but through inner conviction. And inner conviction is cultivated in solitude. When you no longer need the validation of the world, when you no longer seek permission from others to believe in your own power, you have mastered the secret of creation. The world will always reflect what you assume in the stillness of your own mind. Assume wisely, assume boldly, and know that what is impressed in solitude will soon be expressed in reality. There is a great mystery hidden from the masses, a truth so profound yet so simple that most overlook it entirely. The world would have you believe that you are merely a product of circumstances, that you are shaped by conditions beyond your control, that you are subject to forces outside of yourself. This is the grand deception that keeps so many bound to limitation. But the one who withdraws into solitude, who dares to turn away from the distractions of the world and look inward, will come to a realization so powerful that it will change everything. The realization that you are the creator of your reality. There is no power outside of you. The experiences you call life, the relationships you attract, the opportunities that arise, and even the obstacles you face, all of these are reflections of the assumptions you hold about yourself. You do not experience the world as it is. You experience the world as you assume it to be. The only thing that stands between you and the life you desire is the concept you hold of yourself. And that concept is shaped not by external forces, but by the assumptions you accept as true in the quiet of your own mind. Most live in reaction to the world, believing that circumstances dictate their inner state. They allow their emotions, their beliefs, and even their self-worth to be determined by the shifting tides of external conditions. But the truth is the opposite. The world is reacting to you. The circumstances of your life are not causes, they are effects. They are the mirror image of the assumptions you have held within. Change the assumption, and the reflection must change. And it is in solitude, away from the noise of the world, that you come face to face with this truth. The world is filled with distractions, with voices that seek to define you, with influences that reinforce limitation. From birth, you have been told who you are, what you can and cannot do, what is possible and what is not. These external voices shape the assumptions you carry, and those assumptions in turn shape your reality. But what if those assumptions were false? What if the limitations you believe in are nothing more than illusions sustained by repetition? To answer this question, you must step away from the world and enter solitude. For it is only in solitude that you can strip away the false ideas imposed upon you and rediscover the truth of your own being. In the silence, without the influence of the outer world, you begin to see clearly. You realize that you are not your past, not your failures, not the limitations you once accepted. You are the operant power, the one who assigns meaning to experience, the one who decides what is true and what is false. And what you decide in the stillness of your own mind will become the reality you live. No one and nothing has the power to shape your life except you. The outer world is only an echo, a reflection of the inner state. If you do not like the reflection, you do not need to fight it. You need only change what you assume to be true within. Most never discover this truth because they never take the time to be alone. They live entirely through the senses, reacting to appearances, conforming to the expectations of others, accepting as truth the limitations they have been taught. They do not question, they do not withdraw, they do not look inward, and so they remain bound to the patterns they unknowingly create, repeating the same experiences again and again, unaware that they are the cause. But the one who enters solitude, who dares to turn away from appearances and inquire within, will come to know the greatest realization of all, that consciousness is the only reality, and that consciousness is entirely within your control. You do not need to seek permission to change. You do not need to wait for circumstances to align. The power to transform your life lies within you now, in this very moment. All that is required is a change in assumption. If you assume yourself to be limited, to be lacking, to be incapable, the world will reflect those assumptions perfectly. But if you assume yourself to be powerful, to be worthy, to be already in possession of that which you seek, then the world must conform to that assumption just as faithfully. There is no force outside of you preventing change. The only force at play is your own belief. The process is simple, but it requires faith. In solitude, away from the distractions of the senses, begin to assume the identity of the one you wish to be. Do not wait for proof. Assume it now. Feel it as real. Enter so deeply into this assumption that it becomes your natural state. If you persist, the world will have no choice but to reflect your new identity back to you. This is not theory, this is law. The world is a mirror, and it cannot reflect anything other than what you assume to be true about yourself. Doubt is the only barrier. If you look to the outer world for confirmation before you have changed within, you will remain trapped in the old state. But if you persist in your assumption, if you refuse to be swayed by appearances, if you remain faithful to the vision you have claimed in solitude, then the outer world must yield. This is the secret known by those who have mastered life. They do not seek change in the world, they seek change in themselves, knowing that the world is only a shadow that follows the movement of consciousness. If you would test this, begin now. Withdraw from the world, enter the silence of your own mind, and assume the feeling of already being the person you wish to be. Do not wait for the world to change first. Change yourself in consciousness, and the world will follow. The power is not in effort, not in struggle, not in action taken from a state of lack. The power is in assumption, in the quiet knowing that what is imagined will become seen. Assume wisely, persist unwaveringly, and you will come to know the greatest truth of all. You are the creator of your own reality. Imagination is the only reality, the one and only force that shapes the world around you. Everything that you see, everything that you experience, every condition of your life is nothing but the externalized form of an inner movement of consciousness. The world as it appears is not fixed, nor is it separate from you. It is the reflection of your inner state, molded and shaped by the images you persistently hold in mind. But to truly harness this creative power, one must retreat into solitude, away from the noise of the outer world, away from the distractions that pull the mind in 1,000 directions. Only in solitude can one fully engage the power of imagination without contradiction, without interference, and with absolute conviction. Most live entirely through the senses, allowing the outer world to dictate their thoughts, their emotions, and their beliefs. They look at their current conditions and take them as facts, as unchangeable truths, failing to realize that what they call reality is merely the crystallized effect of past imaginal acts. They do not understand that the world does not create the mind creates the world. and so they remain bound to appearances, trapped in a cycle of reacting to what is, rather than creating what could be. But the one who steps away, who enters solitude, who turns inward and dares to see with the eye of imagination rather than the eye of sight, will come to know the greatest power of all, the power to shape reality from within. In solitude, the mind is free, free from the limitations imposed by the senses, free from the opinions of others, free from the distractions that keep imagination bound to what is rather than what can be. It is here in this sacred space of stillness that the greatest creations are born. Everything that has ever been accomplished, every great invention, every masterpiece, every transformation in human history began as an unseen image in the mind of one who dared to imagine beyond what the world called possible. And you, in your solitude, hold this same power, this same divine gift to create from within. The imagination is not some idle fantasy, not some trivial amusement. It is the very substance of creation, the force through which all things come into being. It is the master key to life, the bridge between the invisible and the visible, the unseen and the seen. But to use it effectively, one must withdraw from the distractions of the world, enter the silence, and deliberately assume the state of already possessing that which is desired. It is not enough to wish, to hope, to long for change. One must assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, living in imagination as though the desired reality were already present. Most fail to realize that imagination, when engaged in solitude, becomes infinitely more powerful. When the mind is constantly bombarded by external impressions, by the evidence of the senses, by the doubts and fears of others, it is difficult to sustain a clear vision. The outer world contradicts the inner vision, pulling attention away from creation and back into reaction. But in solitude, this contradiction dissolves. The senses are quieted, the distractions fade, and the mind is free to fully immerse itself in the desired state. In this sacred space, imagination becomes the only reality, and what is impressed upon the mind with conviction must externalize in the world. The process is simple, yet it requires discipline. Withdraw from the world, close your eyes, and assume the feeling of already being the person you wish to be. See the world through the eyes of this new self. Walk in imagination as though you were already in possession of all that you desire. Do not merely visualize, feel. Engage every sense, making the imaginal act as real and vivid as possible. If you wish for success, feel the thrill of accomplishment. If you desire love, feel the warmth of being cherished. If you seek abundance, feel the security of already having it. Persist in this assumption, dwelling in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and reality will conform to your imagination. Doubt has no place in this process. The senses will attempt to contradict the imaginal act, presenting evidence of lack, delay, or impossibility. But these appearances are merely shadows of past assumptions, echoes of old beliefs that no longer serve you. They hold no power except that which you give them. If you remain faithful to the vision held in solitude, if you persist in the assumption of already having that which you seek, then nothing can prevent its manifestation. The world must yield to the dominant state of consciousness. To test this, practice daily. Withdraw into solitude, away from all distractions, and immerse yourself in the state of your wish fulfilled. Make this more real than anything the senses present. Do not wait for proof. Know that the proof will come as a direct result of your inner conviction. Assume boldly, persist unwaveringly, and the world will move to reflect your assumption. There is no need to struggle, no need to force conditions to change. Your only task is to assume the feeling of already having what you seek. Reality will follow. This is the secret known by those who have mastered life. The imagination, when engaged in solitude, is the most powerful force in existence. It is the origin of all creation, the means through which reality is shaped, the bridge between what is imagined and what is experienced. The one who understands this truth who withdraws from the distractions of the world and dares to assume his desires as already fulfilled, holds in his hands the key to unlimited creation. He knows that what he imagines with conviction in solitude will soon become the world he walks through. The world you experience is nothing more than the reflection of your inner state. Every condition, every relationship, every opportunity, and every obstacle is a projection of consciousness, a mirror of the assumptions you have accepted as true. Yet, most live unaware of this truth, believing themselves to be at the mercy of circumstances, reacting to the world rather than shaping it. But the one who dares to step away, to enter solitude, to turn inward rather than outward, will come to know the greatest realization of all. You are the creator of your reality. In solitude, the distractions of the outer world fade, and you are left with the only thing that has ever truly mattered, your own consciousness. Here, away from the noise, you come face to face with the truth that imagination is the only reality. What you assume in the silence of your mind will in time harden into fact. The world does not create you. You create the world. Most seek change in external conditions, believing that new circumstances will bring them the fulfillment they desire. But fulfillment does not come from the world. It comes from within. The outer world is nothing but the reflection of inner movement. If you wish to change your reality, you must first change your concept of self. And this transformation begins in solitude, where you are free to assume a new identity without contradiction, without interference, without the weight of the past pressing upon you. Doubt and fear are the only barriers to your transformation. If you persist in your old assumptions, the world will faithfully reflect them. But if you withdraw into solitude, if you assume the state of already being the person you wish to be, and if you remain faithful to that assumption despite all appearances, then nothing can stop the fulfillment of your desire. The law is simple. What you believe yourself to be, you will become. What you assume to be true, the world must reflect. There is no force outside of you shaping your destiny. The only force at play is your own imagination. Use it wisely. Assume boldly. Persist unwaveringly, and the world will move to reflect the vision you have claimed in the stillness of your own mind. Solitude is not isolation. It is the doorway to mastery. It is the space where the great secret is revealed, where the truth of your own power becomes undeniable. In solitude, you awaken. In solitude, you remember. In solitude, you become.